Everything that's good about my playing, I stole from somebody. Like, it's the first thing. I've stolen a lot of things.
A lot of people can't tell the difference between Philly Joe, Elvin Jones. In your mind, just first thing straight off your head,
Yeah.
4 bars of Tony Williams.
Yep.
I don't know, this is Tony Williams, and
Yep.
I think this is what I took from him.
For sure. So Tony, for me, the cymbal and the hi-hat they felt like they were in dialogue a lot. Right? That was... No, please.
So
please.
dialogue between the two, that's what you took from that.
That's what I took from it. Dialogue between the hi-hat, the open hi-hat, the splashy hi-hat, and the ride cymbal. Right? So here's Elvin. What I took from Elvin was the inside of the triplet, right? So kind of before this, Elvin is so important to me because when I was listening to drummers play jazz, there's kind of before Elvin and after Elvin. So there's like the quarter note approach, right? Art Blakey played like this, sort of, right? Elvin opened up the triplet inside. Beat stays the same. The beat stays the same. But that opening of the triplet is really what Elvin brought to the music.
Great.
Yeah.
Jimmy Cobb.
Jimmy Cobb. Pocket. Now, see, okay, I got to stop and say this. People talk about pocket. They say, man, you play pocket. You play great pocket. Thank you. But my definition of pocket is this. The pocket is the place where all the musicians exist when they agree on the time. Pocket involves other people. You can play pocket. You can play groove by yourself. You can play pocket, lock in a pocket. You can imagine what the other cats are playing. But the space where everybody meets and agrees on the time and y'all stay in that space, that's the pocket. So when I listen to Jimmy Cobb and Paul Chambers and Wynton Kelly play on Kind of Blue, I listen to them play So What? I listen to them play Freddie Freeloader, which you played earlier. That is the funkiest, to me, that's some of the funkiest straight ahead jazz because the pocket is so deep. The way Jimmy Cobb and Paul Chambers played together, NASA should study that shit. It's like, you know what I mean? Because it's just so, you can set your watch by it. So this is Jimmy Cobb. See that right there. That right there. And I took the fact that I could dance to his ride cymbal is the thing I took from Jimmy Cobb. I could dance to it. Like it really just made me want to just get up, made me want to move.
What'd you take from the drum machine? Give me a specific drum machine and give me 2 different drum machines. What did you take from it?
Okay, so my first drum machine I ever owned was an MPC 2000 before the XL. This is way back in the day. This is like late 90s. And I got it. And the first thing I learned about the drum machine was the ability to shift notes. So I would program something in, like just an eighth note pattern quantized to the eighth note. What you could do was shift the hi-hat behind the beat. You could also shift the snare ahead of the beat. And requantize it, same with quarter notes. Okay, so now we're entering Dilla territory. That's what he did with the drum machine, and how it's changed the way a lot of us play music. I messed around with like the SP12 too, but it was kind of more the same thing. The SP12 didn't have the note shift, but what you could do with the SP12 was you could play a sample that was tuned low, so that if you took a break beat like this, let's say that was a snare sample, but you sped up the beat. This is really hard to do. But you kept the sample the same. The sample was playing slower than the rest of the groove. So it kind of put this limp on the snare sound. It kind of made the snare sound like it was dragging, but it was actually just playing the same sample at a different tempo, right? That was my first. Actually, the first time I messed around with a drum machine was the SP12. The MPC 2000 came later for me. But those are the lessons I learned about this idea of a grid and playing against it, shifting it.
What about some other backbeat drummers, modern? More drummers that are maybe even some of your contemporaries?
Oh, yeah. I've stolen a whole lot of shit from Questlove, too. I'm not going to lie. I don't know that there was playing hip-hop was a thing before Questlove, because he has this kind of encyclopedic mind of break beats. Your record collection is your textbook. So, coming to like the funky drummer, I learned it before I knew who the roots were, but I had never really played it. He might have been the first drummer I saw actually play the break. I'd never seen video of Clyde Stubblefield play it before Questlove, So I'll say him. I've stolen a lot of shit from Steve Jordan, as you can probably tell. Steve he's on the Mount Rushmore to me. That snare sound, that traditional grip. I go back and forth with traditional grip. Sometimes I don't have the chops to keep it up for an entire backbeat gig, because I get fatigue, and I haven't yet developed the gash that Steve Ferrone and maybe Steve Jordan have, that can allow you to numb the pain of that backbeat. But watching Steve play, like when I hear that power in that snare drum sound, that's the thing I've tried to take from him. The first time I heard Steve Jordan to know it was him was a record by David Sanborn, R.I.P. David Sanborn. It feels funny to say that too. But there was a record he did. He did a cover of a song by Ornette Coleman called "Ramblin'," and the groove was this. So that I heard that, and I remember this was another record my dad had in his collection. I walked in and I was like, what is this? I was 16 at the time. What is this? I had to read all the liner notes, find out who played every note on it, and that was my discovery of Steve Jordan, So many more cats, man. I could go on and on.
Yeah. I love that. The one thing, before we take a couple questions to end, the one thing I want you to just acknowledge here is the depth of study. Specific drummers and very specific things about them, and then identifying some piece of fingerprint in what they do. I think doing that sort of thing, when you study the masters, when you study the people that you love, when you start to figure out who you are a little bit more as a person, you'll start to find some of those things as well for yourself.
Yeah.
So when you learn to study what other people do and what gives them their fingerprint and what makes them identifiable, I think it actually makes it easier for you to find what's identifiable in your playing and who you are as a musician. And that really, honestly, that little demonstration there is probably the answer of how did you find your identity.
Absolutely.
It's just, you put so much time and attention to what separates drummers from each other and what they contributed to music as a whole, not just drumming, but music industry, music as an art form.
Yep.
That's really inspiring.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. And that's, this is ongoing too. There are other drummers, I could mention more contemporary drummers, guys I know, guys my age, guys younger than me, who are kind of coming up, and I'm like, man, I love what these cats are doing. I love what they're playing. I'm always going to study it and be inspired by it.